Hi there, my name's Donghua. Let's talk about split pushing. Split pushing is one of the most well-known tactics in League. It is one of the most annoying things to deal with. Champions like Tryndamere just sit in lane all game. They don't team fight, they just keep split pushing, and it's so annoying to deal with. However, a lot of times I see people split pushing incorrectly, especially on different champions. I'm going to tell you how to split push and how to deal with split push. I'm going to tell you the 3 most important things that you got to think about when split pushing, and I'm going to tell you the 3 ways that people use to stop split pushing. First, let's look at what split pushing is. Most people think that split pushing is like a one-man mission. It's a one-man commando mission where you go behind enemy lines and you destroy things and you sabotage them. It doesn't matter what your team is doing, it just matters if you're doing what you need to be doing. That's not what split pushing is. Split pushing is better described as Dad going on a business trip. He leaves the family for a little bit so he can get some money for the rest of them. But while Dad is away, his family is vulnerable to attacks because he's not there to protect them. There are 3 things to remember while going on business trips. First thing is caution and vision. Survival is super important when you're split pushing. The longer you live, the more time you will buy for your teammates to take other objectives across the map. Making the enemies come towards you and escaping before they even arrive is a great way to waste their time. They aren't farming and they aren't defending other objectives on the map. Most split pushers have a lot of escapes. You don't actually need too many wards. You just have to play safe enough when you can't see the enemies on the map. The rule of caution that I like to follow when I'm split pushing is called the Bukkake rule. If one enemy is coming, they're all about to come. 2. Second thing that you have to think about is team composition. Before you commit to split pushing on your champion, you have to check how much disengage does your team have, how much wave clear does your team have, and how easily can they take objectives. Usually champions that have less wave clear can kill objectives faster and vice versa. One thing you need to remember is not to split push against hard engage. Don't do it. I'm serious. It doesn't matter how safe your teammates are being. The enemy team can just group up as 5, walk down mid, and rape your team. It sounds like I'm oversimplifying something, but it's actually just that simple. Split pushing against hard engage is like taking your son to a pedophile convention, making him wear a swimsuit, lubricating his body, and then leaving him there and saying, "Son, I'm going on a business trip now. Stay safe." He can't stay safe. He can't stay safe. Your family can't stay safe in that situation, in the situation that you've just left them in. Your family is going to get raped if you leave them like that. But he's not going to get raped as hard as your teammates if you split push against hard engage. When you're playing a champion that relies on split pushing like Tryndamere or Jax, what you want to do is you want to get multiple flanks off. This way, by coming in from different directions, your team can't get area of effect CC'd, and they can still be effective in a team fight. If you leave your team to defend 4 vs 5, they're going to get raped. That's what you have to think about, is can you actually split push against this team comp? And also, if you're playing against a team that has a lot of wave clear, like a Nivea, Ziggs, or Xerath, these champions you can't siege against. So sometimes, even champions that usually don't split push, it's a better idea for them to split push because you can't siege against one of those team comps. The last thing you have to think about, which is the most important, is communication. This is the most important one, but I almost never see people do it. Before you leave on a business trip, you have to communicate to your family what you're going to do, where you're going, and when you're going to be back, and what they should be doing while you're gone. You have to do these things because your family and your teammates are actually pretty similar. They're idiots, and it's sometimes really hard to get them to listen to you. You cannot just assume that your teammates know how to play with split push. If you're split pushing bot lane, you need to make sure your team knows, okay guys, defend mid lane, or go around Baron, but play safe and just buy me some time. You have to be able to communicate what you want them to do and what you're planning to do in order for split pushing to take its full effect. I hate it when I see a split pusher die 1 vs 4 and then flame his teammates for saying, "Hey, I'm 1v4ing, why aren't you guys taking an objective?" It's because they weren't in position. They weren't ready to take an objective. They didn't know that that's what you were trying to do. They didn't know that you were trying to buy them time. You have to communicate to them. You have to tell them, okay guys, they're going to be 1v4ing me. Go take Dragon or go take Baron or go do something while I'm doing this. If split pushing is done properly, then you will have put your opponents in a lose-lose situation. A good split push makes a team give up one major objective for free. If you're killing the Nexus Tower and there's no one to stop you and your team is threatening Baron, that's a win-win situation for you, and that only occurs through good communication. Don't just assume that your teammates know how to play with split push. Tell them what to do so that split pushing works out for you. Now, how do you beat split pushing? There's not one solve-all solution to beat split pushing. There are 3 different ways that people use to deal with split pushing, and each one is correct in a different situation. The first one is the most common one, which is to just send someone that can 1v1 him to defend. This strategy is correct when the rest of your team is stronger than their team. If you're confident that your team can win a 4v4 without you, then do it. This strategy is obviously incorrect if the split pusher can tower dive you. Generally, you want to send someone who is really tanky but can still do a fair amount of damage. If the split pusher is really strong, then what you want to do is you want to send someone who can still defend the tower but won't die to the split pusher. That way someone who's really strong on the enemy team won't participate in the team fight. The second way people try to deal with split pushing is to send a bunch of people to try and pick off the split pusher. Generally, you want to send around 3 people at least to kill the split pusher. Split pushers are great at 1v1s and oftentimes can 1v2. You need someone to do damage, someone to tank, and someone to CC the split pusher. Otherwise, they'll either kill you or get away and waste your time. This strategy is correct when your team has nothing or very little to lose. If you send 4 people to kill the fed Tryndamere and all you lose is, say, a second dragon, then that's worth. It is not worth it, however, when you lose something like an inner mid tower. When your team is behind and you can't team fight, this strategy is also correct, because even if you did group up as 5, you wouldn't win the team fight anyway. And that brings me to the last strategy, which is group up as 5 and fight the enemy team 5v4. This is probably the best way to deal with Tryndamere. Champions like Tryndamere, Jax, and Shen, generally speaking, compared to other top laners like Gnar, Hecarim, or Irelia, are really bad at team fighting. And champions like Tryndamere are even worse at defending. If you force your team to group up as 5 and team fight and push early on, then you can force Tryndamere to go back and defend, which is where he's the most useless. You can dive the enemy team if the split pusher doesn't go back, and then you can take towers as a team. It doesn't matter how strong the split pusher is, he cannot outpush your entire team. If the team fight doesn't go as favorably as you'd like it to, then just send one person back and defend against the split pusher. This strategy is really good when you're even or ahead. This strategy is really bad when you're behind because you might not even win the 5v4 team fight. In which case you just kind of want to go for picks off the split pusher or off other people. One more thing to remember about split pushing is don't split push when your team is crazy ahead. If your teammates are like 7k gold up and they have 5th dragon, just group with your team and end the game. Stop split pushing. You don't need to. Your team is really far ahead. You can just group as 5 and run them over. Split pushing when your team has a massive lead, that's like those dads that just keep going on business trips even though their family is rich. Like they just don't spend any fucking time with their family. Dude, your family has enough money. You're set. You have enough gold. Just spend some time with your kids. Spend some time. Go to the zoo. Kill some people. Do some family shit together. Split pushing when you have like a 10k gold lead and Baron, that's like when Walter White kept cooking meth even though he had enough money for his family. And that's everything you need to know about split pushing.